Okay, dimension 5 and 4 deliberated between one and the other. Mixers define a sixth level. Although there is no sixth dimension as yet, it's not because the two dimensions mentioned don't add up to be more, it's just that two different dimensions existing together make more sense. For an example, you have 5 different senses that change your perspective and perception of your reality in a constant groove of information. To someone who is mute and deaf, all other people seem further away. Distancing themselves becomes easier, but the dimensions are still there, so if things are changing so quickly, you will need more than a square world to move and think in. If you look at 6 dimensions, it seems too complex and does not fit the picture. So 4 and 5 mixed together shows evidence of seeing what you see, believing what you believe, and knowing you are safe in the reality you live in. Although Earth shows its problems, navigating your environment seems very easy. The level 6, as mentioned, runs in logic as a way to understand the two deliberated dimensions. Level 6 is where the brain lives, so it can function in an extremely complex environment. As you venture outside your own awareness, things change. Level 6 disappears from your conscious brain, and the real world of dimension becomes the thinker and has or protects its life elements from the evils in life. Religion has been a constant light of hope in life, so as to bring hope for what the earth promises. I suppose heaven will eventually bring everlasting peace on earth, kingdom thy come. Life being so complex, with everything crashing and swirling with its own answers. Before you can understand the 6th level, you must understand what is and what seems to be. For instance, the theory of dimension versus what you are aware of. If you ponder, the answers will come. The brain encased inside your skull gives awareness to yourself. This proves dimensional change, as there is different focusing going on. As you are aware, so is your environment, and even as far as to say the earth and the universe have its own awareness. The mathematical reasoning behind dimension is built on awareness and notion of ideas. Your sensory attributes the effects of what this notion is. Someone who is travelling from one spot to another is aware of their own self constantly, but they are in effect travelling through dimensional change. The 6th level is what holds them between this point. So as you go further, you become closer to one end of this point in time. Time as a level 9. Time occurs in multiple combinations, changing at a slow pace to one's own perspective, but to Earth, it and outerwards it speeds up to your perspective. It just gets slower and more ancient. The whole universe is so old it makes time look funny, and humans on such a small time scale. Once you see that 100 years is so minuscule, then the human race at 200,000 years, the Earth at 4.543 billion, and the universe at about 12 to 14 billion. Things seem much separated, but there is a pattern here. Okay, you have a few things to look at. Level 6, the stuff of life, changing dimensions, and time levels, so you can see all of your thoughts, as there are many factors going on. You need to balance that the Earth provides. Survival on the planet Earth is dependent on many things, but your own views on life are more than important. As a human, these beliefs and views are necessary to keep the planet safe of humans. Humans are at the top of the food chain, so as we paint the corridors of life, we invent our own. As a biological being and as a conscious being, we are separated between the physical and the mental. The way your mental state affects your environment is important to the sixth level and survival. It is easily swayed and is in constant change. So your physical state is a, a like an like a container. But suppose your biological self is actually doing some hardcore calculation to keep you in the sixth level and to guide you through dimension 5 and 4, as we think normally through most of the day. We also can encounter situations where you can do some pretty hard calculations yourself, like Einstein's famous formula E equals mc squared. It would seem to me the brain itself is simply downloading the information from your surroundings and calculating all your necessities while you choose what to do. The brain probably has quite a few different modes, from downloading to thinking to feeling and storing memory, but no matter what you do, the brain will make sense of it anyway. In the cerebral cortex, you have two hemispheres and four main lobes that are all involved with you thinking patterns. If this is a biological fact, then the brain is only a complex piece of machinery, but I believe the brain is mapped in the stars and can do nothing but serve its master. On the other hand, you yourself are more like the machinery. The sixth level is only playable because the brain exists as a biological motor. People's life consists of two dimensions, and they need to navigate to reach the other side. Once this is done, they have to start again. Memories consistent with our reality are said to be truth or modes of thinking. Memories change over time as you experience new moments, and you can select different memories of different lengths in your belonging to Earth. Memories can be like stop and go, or are associated with general thought that one experiences to make judgment on a topic that is in the immediate space and time. Some experience leads me to think after someone dies, their memories are collected and experienced by other people on Earth. Space-time lives outside of the normal conditions on Earth. They are unnatural in substance and feel totally alien. Out in space-time, and light twists and turn like they twist and turn like they one and the same, like they're one and the same. The universe is its mighty brain, the discoverer of all, with little left for mankind to know more than their own conscious state. Looking out from our little planet with our dimensional brain, leading ourselves forward in life. Life can occur to be quite boring, but on the other end of the scale, overwhelming love and the earth's secrets of the great dangers of the wild. Without the sixth level, none of this would be possible, because the being itself is what's at the center of all we see and do. Okay, the mathematics of the sixth level and human behavior. The triangle, you can look at space and time in mathematics, each symbol making it more and more complex. Starting with a simple triangle and gracing it with a pyramid, space has no known boundary. Therefore, the triangle represents a flat space and the pyramid encompasses the dimensional aspect. Flat is where your eyes level on a shape outside your sixth level. Triangles can be used to draw boundaries that your eyes can't see properly. Pyramids can explain distances that are hard to see. On Earth, we use the shape in all sorts of ways to develop our habitual living. In construction, in design, and with dealing with everyday life, I draw the triangle in my head every time I demand the use of it. Humans have used triangles in life for as long as we have found reason to sort out this knowledge. We seek it, so it comes. In dimensional change, you can see the rudimentary of all this happening. B. The circle. Mathematics proves that the world is round. However, can it prove the universe is? Our brain assumes this could be true. How necessary is this fact? Rely on things to make sense, so our senses are the ones telling us to believe that something outside the sixth sense is justifiable and is something we can figure out or make sense of by calculation. We have created our whole world bit by bit, brick by brick. The more improvements we make on our life, the easier it seems to get. So what does a circle have to do with this? Well, we rely on circles to see inside ourselves, and circles are indeed the great understanding of the human mind. We believe and rely on our senses to show us what a circle is. C. The square. The square is mathematical genius. It depicts the third dimension and creates our buildings and gives meaning to dimension 4 and 5. The cube itself was the first dimensional measurement, and as I have detached my disbelief of third dimension, nobody can prove any or either are the same. The idea of living in a square just doesn't fit unless you add a circle. The corners of the cube don't exist, at least to the naked eye. However, the sixth level could copulate this thought and decisive the sixth level could copulate this thought and deceive the fact that the corners are merely fictional, only exist in the mind. I think the square is the most primitive shape of all shapes. Even the triangle has more appeal. Seventh level. The seventh level of thought is more designed to see your surroundings. Your attitudes, beliefs are influenced by the level of thought and how you perceive. These beliefs organize and direct you along your pathways. Both literally and metaphorically, the sum of what you have is what you see. What you see and believe predicts the seventh level and therefore follows the rules and domains of how to survive so-called dangers on Earth has, or so-called dangers Earth has. Not only are the visual senses sorted this way, so is the mind. The mind's inner voice is projected to complement your mind's eye, with manifest on a higher level, but dose indicate certain criterion and rules to your level 7, and general sight and vision perplexes. All shades of blue are seen in this manner. Colours are seen as recognition to be personalities, and emotions are stirred by these recognizable traits. If you recognize grey, then you are focusing on the traits. Colours mix together as part of the physical world till all things are as one, so as to say colour is not physical first, but it is secondly, and all other things are ordered in this manner. What is not now is to be later. The brain organizes results from outside your bodily functions. These predictions seated in the back of your brain is what we call sectioning. Sectioning causes your level 7 to react to the light and enters your visual cortex. Some of this is done in other parts of the brain. Most of your needs and wants are reactionary with your seventh level. Some equations that complement this line of thinking: 6iw plus 9 bracket 8 times 8 bracket the power to the power of 2. This is equal to the power of 5. If we ask what the power of 5 is to, it is to 1/8 of your control of level 7. So if we say I is some part of level 7, then I to the power of 5 is your answer. Some ideas. In the sensory part of the parietal lobe, we gain some certainty of what the levels 6 and 7 are about, more drawn into your reality. You feel dull and experience a lot of sensory information tight around you, whereas in the levels 7 your world is more played out and you begin to exert more of your sensory thought, and your vision plays tricks. Your senses vision calculates most of your memory. Your memory stores level 7 and 6 by reading the information through visual effect. Point and you will go, stop, and you will start. Your surroundings will always be there, but unsure until dimensional change. Some spiraling effects. As duly noted, people have a sense of beckoning to a white light. I feel this estrangement can be a mortal relief, but more likely your levels are rearranging and preparing for your earthly departure. The human model and its affecting powers with the sixth level and some on-dimensional change. The human body designed to think, see, feel has a strange gift of accumulating and using its environment to understand its own existence. You might say this is natural mind state. We often meditate on our own without practicing the general practice or trains of thought. Most of our human life is spent in concentration, thinking mindset after mindset. The sixth level, reacting with the human program and thought method, develops your reaction to the outside entities, grows thought development, and gives understanding of your dimensional change and other living humans. Down to microscopic understanding, you can explore the universe with your own mind if you need to. Thought expression controls and manipulates objects in aura and definition. The problem with the human model lies within its belief of God or higher powers. Instead, we normalize these truths with little understanding as though we were only scientists, but we are also spiritual beings and connect with these higher thought through our psyche of our own higher thought processing. Living in dimensional change, dimensions that are set there for your boundaries of thought and physical, mental, and actual self. Give special design for your life, abstracting information from the selected sensory. Your dimensions are your encasement for your personal protection. Your whole sensory system reacts with this encasement as things can go from solid to less solid, or can be seen through your own eyes as your own personal paradise. Time and dimensional change. If you imagine time as a straight line, and time is part of an infinity of life and afterlife, which creates dimensional change. Or let's say you could picture infinity as a straight line, and then add dimension to the line's existence. You can build up a barrier of belief to prove the existence of infinity. Dimension and time, these three things are determined by the level that exists inside my own thought and self. It would be hard to imagine there being no infinity, because then you would have to describe a way for there to be a stop, or describe what nothing there is without nothing being something anyway. Our whole existence is described from someone's self. We mainly project our experiences on other people around us. We can't see infinity. We can see what we would like to describe as dimensions, and apparently we have captured time. But what we are doing out here in space, are we looking down at Earth? Are we being watched by Earth? Or do we simply exist for our own pleasure? The idea of God has now been proved in many religions around the earth. Could this idea get old one day and humans can live their own reality? Reality to the seventh level, when time induced, can seem quite slow, watching environmental factors and enjoying pollen bird sounds. Yeah. But time can also be only revealing itself in that manner, when really we turn up a week later, like there was something we missed. The sheer creation of life is connected to time, constantly recapturing the scenery around us. Chapter 2, someone's schizophrenia. Schizophrenia and the seventh level is a way of saying your brain is disturbed and communication is blocked partially between brain-mind communications. Your outlook of life is twisted in an unusual story set of thinking. Dark shells of space matter communicate to your mind, creating voices, interfering thought, paranoia, and hallucinations. All this exaggerated expression of thought confuses your visual spatial perception. Confusion triggers light aspects and changes it into darkness. Low colors as the perspective now. Your defenses peak while you make yourself comfortable as possible. Mood is slowed down. Position is to face the front of something, i.e. a wall, front of a building. Different colors from a mental system of psychic confusion. Mental psyche can occur in your brain, such as symbolic things, crush can, devil arguing, outer space communication, and things that appear far away with the appearance of mental capacity, devils, beasts, so forth. Great capacity of fear can be experienced, tends to relate to old age and death. Even though these experiences are extremely powerful, medication taken over a long period can stabilize the symptoms of schizophrenia, nullifying effects, full mental capacity. The eighth level, and others on the subject of death. Sometimes we fall in love. These characteristics sure self-awareness of death and sharing that memory with the person. In that awareness we see level 8 and what life will give to us. 2 is greater than 1. Only if 2 and 1 are together, 2 eyes are better even though they sit on your own head. So if I'm going to die, what information will come through the spirit of my eye? I would definitely change my level of thinking. So it's not a surprise that my mind would go into 8th level and further on. Mathematical equation XYZ equals 2A1. Some people wish they could buy death and go into awareness with guns blazing, or perhaps they need self-assurance that this will protect them from evil. There is no evidence of this, so why pay? I think money is good, but we need to cleanse our soul before we die to make a good resting bed for our soul to sleep, rest, or regain its power to return. I think when leaving our body, we reach some very high levels of mind and their process and thought process. So to cleanse, we mean to pure, to purize ourselves, which is like a holding on religious life. This brings to mind the fact that there exist levels above the eighth level, incurring with death quite so because the likability of understanding nearing the end of your life, certain attachments and boundaries crossing, and confusion of beliefs when the biological body is left to earth. We must realize that the biological body still possesses a containment of biological elements such that the cells break down, or say there is still function in the biological term. I will now talk some on dimensional space and afterlife. Is space dimensional? Yes, quite so. But there is a dimensional difference in space. It is where you find the dead. It is a place the dead can rest. The only contact we have with them is in the psyche. Travelling at great speeds into space with one's psyche will cause a ripple in space-time. The person which you are seeking bears garments only, so as I don't think you can interfere with any great matters. Maybe you were brought there for love matters or some unsuggested reason. The inner being is very complex, but our life seems quite trivial. I would expect the dimensional time theory seems to someone on the eighth level reasonably clear, even easy to understand, but these states of mind are only brought about by mediation and near-death experiences, or when your time is up. Love and compassion will give you a certain tool to leaving Earth. Our levels won't take us the whole way. Group meditation. People experience level to level together. High Lamas experience level 9, but nobody can pass through to level 10 unless they become enlightened, or perhaps death may occur at such levels. Certain dopamine can cause accelerated love feeling, which will push levels up slightly. Love in mind values is a little more foreboding and tends to cause tears of joy and ruminate past pleasures. Although chemical thought or biological thought possesses the power to experience levels on a physical level, so can the mind, psyche, etc. So as these conglomerates teaches life but lead to death, you need your life to pass through into the afterlife centuries so as to reclaim reincarnation. Rituals are learnt by the living on occasion due to other people's own experience with death and near-death experiences. Eighth level thinking is very alert and passes time with mind invocation. The main of the conscious in body state will recognize what is performed before its sensory system, mainly the outer body. Seat of consciousness is where we put it, so you can change between levels without too much confusion. Your own self is pretty defenseless from your side of the fence, but to someone else their own barrier is clear as well. Equation mm plus 98 times to the power of is just equals 56 AMN. Cancel the feelings of pain, level 7 and level 6. Any inherent feelings of pain shifts, alters states, and can cause you to hallucinate, which will cause reason to change your level automatic and sometimes near deliberately, which is odd because the importance on level change is supposed to be life. Cancer, on the other hand, can cause catalytic change, death, deception, and irregular thought levels shift here because the will to live is put in practice. Your normal state causes slow shifts to the point of being stuck somewhere in between. Cells. Introspection of a cell, like the body of space, assumes that the cell is a microscopic version of ourself, so microscopic that we can only name them by terms of what we reflect, as well as what the sciences can tell us our levels must shift from cell to cell like conscious thought, rippling in time and gradually causing thought patterns that make sense. As a biological being, we relate to problems differently. Some see mathematical terms, some see in religious terms, and some see artistic and rarely philosophically methods of space and time become nonsensical to the scientists and matters of earth by the religious. Here we leave discussions of levels and focus for a while on dimension 5 and 6. From what we can tell, what is around us shows the method of creating what we believe is our dimensional space, or what is a container. Most people believe in a third dimension theory, which contains that we live above a certain level of transport where you can go in any direction without running into something straight away. Obviously, there are many objects in 3 dimensions that you can bump into, or there is a straight line that you can draw without leaving this dimension that exists, but I suggest that there's more to it than just 3 dimension, because besides what is obvious is also our own self and our own existence, which proves an interesting problem. What is outside of us is limited to the point of view. Inside is dimensional change. Dimensional change versus 3 dimension or any other dimensional argument. To believe of a universe that is challenged by only by one dimension rules or theory, 3 dimension and 4 dimension and so on, with no differentiation between them and no change, physical or mental, seems to be restricted and leaves no cause to detail. One's own science record change constantly, and it therefore gives rise to the effect that some dimensional change would be logical. If you put yourself in the middle of a room and calculate the space around you, it would not seem to be square, triangle, or oblong. The earth being round, I suppose you could see yourself in a sphere. So with other things in mind, the time, energy, solids, we could assume that there is a possibility of dimensional change. Supposing we don't get too confused that dimension only relate to shapes, geometrical change is in solids and measured in imaginary lines which equal to something in the smaller solids on a chemical or atomic view. Quantum physics proves all things are or obtain a solid state. Dimension 5 and 6, or 4 and 5. When in constant change gives us an idea that life is a little harder to understand, and though there is much understanding from the ages brought down to us from the centuries before, relies on the documentation of other thoughts and words of their own experiences. We all sit in a common space in the hall of time and must rely on other memory to understand what is what and what we discover to be true. I introduce this idea of a dimensional change for the sake that I change myself every second and every minute and so on. So I am disposed to dimensional change as well. One three-dimensional can, I suppose, support the theory of change, thought, life process, but I would prefer not to think in a square when the very planet we live on is a sphere. However, if I say dimension is a sphere, then I cannot live in or on a sphere without saying there is no dimensional change. There must be, or the complexity of life would not be true. A child's dream, dimensional change. When a child dreams, she is in their own dimensional space. They give rise to their subconscious and can see their own way of thought, although they, in a sleep state, there are still remnants of activity in the outer world. You can feel trapped inside your dream, but this is because something is threatening outside of your dream state. Dimensional change when asleep is like a disfigurement of your life when you are awake. The mind mainly sees what is in wood and can only let a little bit of the outward. Your interchange, however, is exploring the outer psyche world. You can be dreaming when you wake. You can remember being elsewhere as if your mind has travelled in between dimension 4 and 5, trying to place where your thoughts are when in sleep seems to be a difficult task, so I would say they are in a physical dimensional change. When people are monitoring dream state, we can collect much information, but it is not going to be anything like your own perception of what's going on in your sleep. When asleep, you can see your dreams, and when you wake, generally recall at least some dream activity. But to study the truth about what is happening in your sleep, happening in sleep, we would have to go over the dimensional change perception. Is an unknown world that is locked away from human understanding, the part of yourself that is reacting in your dream state. Your psyche and your thought are hidden by dreams. To accurately describe sleep, the sleeper would have to be awake and asleep all in one go. Somebody who analyzes another's sleep pattern cannot know any more than is allowed. Testing on sleep cause information on how to understand things like different states of sleep, dream sleep especially, comes under rapid eye movement and describes to be deep and emotive and understand sleep. Even more, we might be able to study astral travel, astral space travel. People often leave their body in sleep states, including flying dream state, hovering and so forth. All your dreaming is empowered by life and its recognition. I'm introducing this bit on schizophrenia, and then we will take a look on how to interpret this to your level 5 and 6. Schizophrenia, meaning double personality, although this is its meaning, does not relate to double or multiple personality disorder. Schizophrenia is more related to a chemical disbalance in the brain that causes a wide variety of positive and negative symptoms such as delusions, hallucination, audio and sensory touch as well as visual and smell and taste. The obvious negative ones: depression, demotivation, paranoia, social and otherwise. Psychotic symptoms can cause the want to harm somebody else or to your own person. People tend to get carried away with the grandiose hallucination and believe such things like they are king of the world or somebody famous who is dead, or even believe they're Jesus, king of poems, so forth. Old theorists proved the schizophrenia was in the forehead, and that's all. That later people decided it was related to the psyche or the mind. To be precise, many psychologists, psychiatrists, and scientists wanted to pin something more solid. For evidence of mental illness on biological reason, it will give a better way to diagnose a patient with schizophrenia when we can trace evidence to changes of performance in the brain, but this is still unknown. Okay, when in negative symptoms such as demotivation, depression, and mood swings, you will likely be forced into a fifth level state. This low level fifth level will just elevate cruelty and distortion of your mind power. The perceptive power when in positive symptoms, your level 6 will start to play tricks with your mind and reality, and the distortion will be even greater. You may have change in your levels reduced to lower levels when in normal states because the outer world can become so different and removed from usual life experiences. Your awareness change signals from one level to another, like a circuit board stuck in between level 5 and 6. When you finally become yourself again, you can have some relief, and meditation will lighten your life so you can live more smoothly and hopefully stay more to your higher levels, like level 7. Cognitive disruption to dimensional change is produced by hallucinatory effects on the brain. Your sense of dimension is diminished to the point that you can see hints of two-dimensional reality and some effect of fear that is related to this effect. You seem to let dark disturb light rather than the light emitted when watching the sunrise. Section on infinity. Infinity is equal to 1. So if you need to look at infinity as a whole, a never-ending whole, so if you times 1 infinity by 1 infinity, it is equal to 1. If so, 2 infinity wholes must be looked at as never-ending. 2 limitless wholes equal 1 because they share no boundaries. Something that doesn't end has to be 1. So if you wonder why 2 infinity equal the sum of 1, it is because neither have an ending, which leads to the point that something without an end can only be the same thing. Look, a triangle that is the same as another triangle. It could be said that they are 2 triangles, or they are 1 and the same. But if you go one step up to infinity, both have boundaries, so they both have no boundaries. Therefore, they can't exist separately. They are as one. The only way you can see both, if you were in one, then they would have to imagine each other, which would prove their separate existence. If one infinity thought of the other, it would not be able to join in existence. Supposing live in existence that is limitless. This way we can have 2 infinities, infinity plus infinity, but if one negates that, 2 endless amounts can equal the number 1. Or in your mind you can easily separate them into 2 infinities. In algebraic bracket, A equals B, and A plus B equals 1. Bracket. Okay. Dimension of the self. Dimension of the self is the ability to perceive other dimensional change to order and map thought that exists as the environment around you. Your perception of dimension is a thought dimension or thought perception. In the case of thought dimension, there is no physical dimension, so to perceive is to see, and to see is to incorporate the other world, which in turn is facilitated in your brain. When I close my eyes, I see inward. When I open my eyes, I see outward, so my self-dimension is related to myself. My communication of the outside world is sorted and distorted why I believe of what I perceive. My own self emanates my own belief. I'm a boundary that seeks to understand anything I can learn, becomes a part of my boundary, ever hungry for thought. I can only judge what I know. My perception of myself, my perception of self-dimension copulates my capacity to understand the outside world. Chapter 3. Okay, we're going to have a change of argument. Memory perception. Memory of perception allows me to make judgment in the now of what I see in the past and what is to be true in the future. What I guess is true, in a sense, only beheld to humankind, men and women. True to the animal kingdom, but not in the same sense. All my senses allow for my level 7 to see this. My general level domain is mixed up in the memory perception, memory being very strong in our genes. And that's all I've written so far. Okay.